So, a lot of that is essentially managing them, their expectations, and also what you're trying to get out of them.
Yeah, that's interesting.
And I had a couple of players who made certain tasks quite difficult, such as collecting urine tests and stuff. Some players would just chuck it on the floor and in front of me.
I don't. Right, it's a little bit more that job entails than I thought.
Yeah. Yeah, we had to do some of the dirty work.
Yeah.
Picking up the dirty pants out the shower, urine tests, that kind of stuff to check for hydration before going out to training.
That's interesting. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thank you for tuning to the Cassie podcast. We appreciate you being here. First and foremost, I know apologies. Sorry for the long wait. Sorry for the long delay. You can blame Simba for that. And he's not going to be talking, so he can't defend himself. We have a new special guest with us today, as always. We have Sam here with us today. Thank you, Sam, for being with us.
Thank you for having me on.
I was going to say your last name, but then I didn't want to say it wrong. How do you pronounce it?
Peyps.
Peyps? Yeah. No way. I was never going to say it like that. Peyps. Peyps. That's a lot better than what I was saying in my head.
I'll save you this.
Yeah, appreciate that. No, thank you for being here today, man. I know this was your relaxing day, so I appreciate it.
All good, man. Pleasure to be here.
Thank you. So, I don't know if you've seen, but we've got a little bit of a segment to start off with, okay? I'm going to play a little game. This game is going to be just about life, okay, about life stuff. It's going to be a would you rather game, okay? Mm-hmm. So it's going to be about life stuff. You're going to pick one or the other, okay? Nice. Essentially what you would prefer, what you'd go for, okay? So we're going to start off. There's about 8 of them, so, right. Start off fairly easy.
It's not kiss, marry.
No. It's just would you rather about life. So like...
No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, something like that. I want to be doing that.
Yeah.
All right, cool. So first one is Ronaldo or Messi?
Messi.
Okay. MJ or LeBron?
MJ.
That would
look like old school like that. Oh, that
would look like it was difficult.
That was difficult.
Strength or speed?
Speed. Speed kills.
You're the third person that said speed. Interesting. Leg day or arm day?
Leg day. All day.
That was easy. Beach holiday or city holiday?
Beach.
Fairs.
Yeah.
Nature or nightlife?
Nature.
Physical or mental? Yeah.
Can we do both?
No.
No.
That's what
Physical. It's cool. I'm a sucker for it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Last one. Arsenal or Tottenham? This is funny because I know you're a Chelsea fan.
God.
This is funny because I know you're a Chelsea fan.
That is deep.
Arsenal or Tottenham?
Arsenal.
Yeah! Good. I was about to end this whole thing with Tottenham.
Not with the sort of rivalry between Chelsea and Tottenham.
No, I appreciate you coming here, man. I always try to explain. So I'll explain to people who don't know how I came across you. So speaking a little bit, I play football with 2 other friends who play for our team, and they trained with you. And I found out through their social media and through their videos of training with you who you were and what you do. And just straight off the bat, it was just because of my interest in what I like and what I do.
Sure.
And I feel stuff that piques my interest a little bit. So that's when I started following you, started really looking at what you do. And after a while, I thought, this guy seems like he knows his shit. He seems like he knows his stuff. So I wanted to get you on the podcast for a while. We've been speaking for a little bit on and off. Just had to sort out dates and whatnot. So just for people who don't know, just explain what you do, exactly what your brand is.
Firstly, I've got to give you props for you in the gym. I've seen you move, man.
Yeah. Appreciate it.
So I'm a strength and conditioning coach by trade, purveyor of all things high performance. I've been working in professional football for the last 8 years.
Nice.
Did a stint at a Premier League club.
Oh, nice.
Not name dropping today. We could get into it a bit later. It wasn't Chelsea. Did a pretty short stint there. Jumped ship because I kind of had a couple of things going on, and running my own business and doing a full-time job in professional football affiliated with a club is now impossible.
Yeah.
So jumped ship to basically continue doing my thing, setting up different sort of revenues, different sort of revenue streams. Whilst still working in professional football. So I still work with players doing consultancy work in season,
right,
as well as doing off-season camps with them.
Right.
From Premier League players all the way down to grassroots players.
That's it.
Yeah, so a bit of a broad range.
Yeah.
The application is exactly the same. It's just
yeah.
the technical ability is a bit different.
Yeah. I well, sort of just on what I saw, I always imagined that you was sort of simply a SEC coach, but with connections with like, you know, young academy players, etc., etc. I didn't know you the years you've been in the game and the level you've worked at. How did you get into the Premier League job with the team? How was that? What was your role?
It's a good question, actually. So the role was actually assistant strength and conditioning coach. I started off in the academy and then worked my way up to 23's first team.
Nice.
But I suppose how I got the role in the first place, I was actually working at a space in Fulham doing some freelance work, having just left my first official role in like personal training.
Yeah.
You know, you got to start somewhere. In the David Lloyd, doing the graveyard shifts and all that jazz. And so I moved to the studio and Breda Hangeland, who centre-half at Fulham. I don't know if you remember way back when. The Norwegian chap.
Hangeland.
Yeah.
I remember.
Like 7 foot tall.
Yeah.
He was doing some yoga there with a lady who actually ended up working for Crystal Palace as their yoga instructor.
Oh, interesting.
And at the time I saw him and I was like, damn, I've got to go speak to this guy.
Yeah.
But because he was a footballer, I was like, is he going to actually want to like communicate with me? Is he going to want to give me? Is he going to give me the time of the day? Because you kind of have these, when you haven't been affiliated in the game, you have these opinions of what footballers could be like. Right. Okay. Yeah. And now I know they are just human beings. Yeah. They have a slightly unique role in that they play football, obviously professionally, but they're human beings. So like just like all of us.
Yeah, and we feel that with a lot of people in all walks of life that we see on a stage. We're like, they're not us, but they are.
It's the same on my like first day at Palace, especially when I went up to the first team.
Yeah.
Had like Zaha and Kabay, Flamini. And I was like, actually, Flamini's one of your boys, isn't
it?
Yeah.
It is.
But eventually plucked up the courage to go and speak to him and had a chat. And I said, look, can you just show me around Fulham? Like, just want to come in and have a chat, meet some people. And so I was just networking essentially. Nice. Unfortunately, Fulham actually went down that year.
Was it that year?
Yeah, and then he moved over to Palace, and so then I knocked on his door again. And I said,
"Nice,
you can let me in? Is there room for a little one?" Kind of thing. And then he just put me in contact with the head of sports science there, and then kind of that was the rest is history, as they say.
That's good, man. Yeah. Even the fact that he felt confidence in himself to have like the nous to be like, I have the authority to just connect you. Because if that was any other like young player in the squad, they wouldn't feel like they could be like, I'm gonna bring you in to come and do SC coach. So that's good. Certain things like that happen that just happen to be luck, but then you've got to actually take the opportunity.
I think you've got to step out your comfort zone a little bit, and especially when it comes to networking. Football's like what I've noticed over the years. Football is it's a very small circle, as odd as that sounds. Yeah. And it's also a very well guarded circle.
I imagine
it's very hard to get in.
People I imagine in a sense where a lot of people know of each other. Yeah. In that sense.
Yeah. I mean, all of the agents, everyone knows everyone in that industry, and
I feel like it's the same thing even when you go further down the leagues. I feel like it's the same thing where a lot of coaches that you wouldn't know of or scouts know each other and know of. They hear things of like other players and whatnot. Yeah. I feel like the whole thing filters down all the way down to the bottom. But that's amazing. You was there for how long?
2 years.
You said it was a short stint, 2 years.
2 years, yeah.
How was that 2 years?
It was great, man. Yeah. The experience I got from that is, basically set me up to do what I'm doing now. And that was essentially the stepping stone for sort of continuing to work in the private sector at the kind of level that I'm working at. And it just gives you not only the experience of how to work with, these players week in, week out, but also the credibility. So create opportunities elsewhere.
And SSC and PT was always something that you was just into and you wanted to do from the beginning. Yeah. Did you go uni?
Well, I say from the beginning, no. So I actually started off in finance.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. I was doing
like internships, like getting treated like crap, getting paid nothing. Yeah. And then this one day I had this epiphany that, I wanted to do something in football. Yeah. And I suppose personal training was essentially the stepping stone to that. So it helps bridge the gap towards it.
Well, I'm I feel like I'm a bit of an echo now, the way I've preached so much in here about like people just like finding that thing and just like dropping everything else and going to it. So no, that's good that how old were you when you had that epiphany?
25.
Right.
Yeah.
So like, that seemed like a great age as well, to have that little bit of a...
It was almost 2 years too late, but at least I did it.
You still did it. You still got to it.
Yeah, I'm glad I didn't persevere in the office job. I tell you.
It is interesting if you succeeded in like an office job and
of course
achieving so much when you still had that. feeling to be like, this is not what I want?
No, I'm quite entrepreneurial though, so I always wanted to sort of be my own boss and have a team behind me and stuff. And
Fairs. So 2 years at Palace, you've learned a lot there, so having a great time there.
Yeah.
And you was an assistant SC coach.
Yeah.
So just assisting with all of that.
Yeah. Both in the gym and on the pitch.
Right. What was some of the biggest surprises you got there, just at that level?
Biggest surprises. Well, okay. Firstly, obviously, day one, that kind of like pinch me moment.
Right. Yeah.
But then, it's funny how like from one day it can go from being very surreal to just a formality.
Yeah.
Then they're like, essentially, we wouldn't classify them as like buddies or whatever, but in theory they are.
Yeah. Did you get to?
Yeah, you create a relationship with them, and you have to treat everyone quite differently because they're different characters, different personalities, different egos.
Did you get to a place where like, did you find that like there was a huge gap in knowledge with you and other like of the more senior SSC coaches?
Not really.
Or was it pretty much same?
Pretty much the same
stuff.
Just had a bit more skin in the game.
Yeah.
They've been there a bit longer.
Yeah.
But yeah, so going back to some of the other difficulties, so going back to some of the personalities that I mentioned, being able to manage each one individually is quite difficult.
It's interesting because I wouldn't feel like you as an SC coach would have to manage personalities.
A lot of it is to do with buy-in.
All right.
Yeah, the process is buy-in heavy.
Yeah.
If you can't get buy-in from a player, how do you expect them to do what you want them to do?
Right.
So a lot of that is essentially managing them, their expectations, and also what you're trying to get out of them.
Yeah. That's interesting.
And I had a couple of players who made certain tasks quite difficult.
Yeah,
such as collecting urine tests and stuff. Some players would just chuck it on the floor and in front of me.
I don't. Right, it's more a little bit more that job entails than I thought.
Yeah. Yeah, we had to do some of the dirty work.
Yeah.
Picking up the dirty pants out the shower. Urine tests, that kind of stuff to check for hydration before going out to training.
That's interesting. So you finished. You said you wanted to leave that because you wanted to. You felt like did you feel like it was that place where you got what you needed, or
probably could have got a little bit more. I didn't see my future in football within that capacity.
Okay, within a black Premier League club.
Yeah.
Fairs. And then
I saw the light.
And then you made the decision to find your own thing.
Yeah, I already had my own thing going on outside anyway.
Fairs.
So I was doing a full day in there and then trying to tap on 2 or 3 hours of PT afterwards.
Yeah.
It's just not sustainable.
Yeah. So talk to us about that, about the process of starting out your thing, what you wanted to start up, and how that came about. It's Sam Pepys.
Sam Pepys Performance.
Yeah. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, so it's all, like I said before, it's been heavily driven towards high performance and especially the football side of things. The football is my jam.
Yeah.
And now I've created a number of different sides of the business, from the in-person coaching, which is the kind of like the higher ticket offering for say the likes of first team players or whatever. And then I've got also the online coaching side of things. Which allows me to work with players both remotely in the UK and also abroad worldwide.
And they started from the beginning?
Yeah.
Okay, nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
It's just taken a while to refine the system,
Yeah.
There's always been a framework in place, but it's just refining it year on year.
So what does the week look like then with training clients, some of the people doing it online? You mentioned that how long have you been doing the mentoring?
Mentoring I've been doing about 3 years now.
So
but we've recently, last year we launched the first group offering. So now there's group mentoring as well as one-to-one.
Nice. And this is so your week. How do you go through all of this?
It's a good question.
How do you go through all of this? On the mentoring, the online coaching, the actually being in the gym, training people, and you put out, you stay active on social media, you put out a lot of content.
Media, it's just about being organized, really.
Yeah.
Like time is always the issue with this. So managing the time accordingly is pivotal to actually monitoring and managing the process, but also growing the business as well. So a typical week could be anything from doing 12 to 14 hours on the gym floor, which is not a lot in the grand scheme of things. I've kind of like whittled that back to then just at the desk, laptop for the rest of it.
Are you a work from home kind of guy?
Most of the time, yeah.
Most of the time,
yeah.
fair enough. Was you a fan of that when that all came about?
No,
not at all.
That was the bane of my life.
Yeah.
It was. I mean, for some people, it was a great opportunity, and I just at the time it wasn't really doing it for me.
Yeah.
The actual programming side of things was good because it was, I had something in place and it was easy to manage. But doing Zoom sessions and stuff. No.
Yeah. It's funny because I PT as well, and I have some clients and I speak to some of them now, and they're like, "Oh, yeah, my boss is trying to get me to come into work 3 days a week now," and they talk about it like, "I cannot do that. This
like
is impossible." Yeah, like how dare he make me come in for 3 days a week?
I mean, the funny thing is though, if you had said to me that, okay, firstly, I tried to escape an office job. Yeah. And then, if you'd said to me, you're going to be ending up back in an office environment in 10, 12 years' time, I would have been like, nah, don't be silly. But then when it comes to managing a team, you can't be on the gym floor the whole time.
Yeah. No, you can't, exactly. So in terms of, if I keep it specific to training and the clients, and the first thing that stuck out to me was the more, should I say, youth academy players that you coach.
Yeah.
How did that connection come around to have access to, a player? I've seen you repost people who I assume you train who are at certain levels.
Yeah.
How did that process come about, connecting with all these other clubs to get them to bring you their players?
It's not actually via the club. Okay. It can eventually end up being in conjunction with the club, but initially it's more through parents and agents.
Okay.
So just contacts within different football agencies, and also I've got a couple of intermediaries who work as scouts, coaches. I think there's probably a few fingers in the contractual pies as well.
Yeah, of course.
So it's just contacts outside of the club itself, and then once there's a relationship there and been working with the player for a certain period of time, then there might be a bit more communication with the club, which is an essential part of it, and or via the player. So if I'm say trying to get specific training data or see what their loading has been like for the week, then it'll be either through the club, or if the player has access to it, they'll just pass it on to me.
Is that something that clubs are, because I imagine most clubs who have the facilities can, or maybe have their own coaches, is that something that's easy to get from the clubs? And like an external person coming and training.
Why does this question always end up?
Their players. I imagine
it's a good question.
I imagine it'd be a problem that can arise because of coaches and their setups and their clubs completely. And their setups and their coaches.
Yeah, the thing is, what I want to try and make abundantly clear is that what I do outside is not trying to basically take someone else's job or step on their feet. The aim is to try and collaborate on this one, work together. Sometimes obviously the lines are a bit blurry with that one. Some easier than others.
Yeah,
response to your question.
As long as the agreement can be made, you got to think about who is the role, who are the responsibilities to. Yeah, it's to the player and their performance and their development and progression. So, I imagine if you're working with a sound of mind club who understand that and maybe don't have someone in the ranks to do specifically with that specific player what you can do. Yeah, I don't imagine it should be a problem. The one thing is
the one thing, and the game will change. I mean, it's already evident that it has evolved. Yeah, one thing you can't deny is that a player needs an individualized approach. Everyone's different.
Yeah, of course.
I'm not going to say it's going to go down to position specific work, but every player moves different, has different needs. Yeah. So a generic approach is not the best approach for, say, someone who's playing at a high level. It will cover them. It will cover the angles. Yeah. But it's not going to be as bespoke and specific as, say, someone at that level needs in order to progress or develop the physical qualities or characteristics they need.
And so, how do we handle that then? Because some clubs don't have the facilities to maybe cater to different. Because I understand that's how it works at maybe top level clubs, at Premier League clubs, where certain players have certain training programs that are tailored to them. But I don't think it's the kind of thing where they could do what you do, where they're specifically with that player for a certain amount of time, because they only have a minute number of coaches or SC coaches. So it sort of has to be a generalized sort of training thing, and maybe you can check back in with them.
Yeah, I mean, I fully appreciate the concerns that clubs would have with it, because they're essentially trying to keep everything under one roof. That's the best, or the most effective way of controlling everything, isn't it? Yeah. And when the communication starts to go away, that's when it becomes a bit of a slippery slope. Yeah. So it's ensuring that the lines of communication are just super clear.
Yeah. So I'll ask you, in your opinion, what is the best and most important reason for specifically strength and conditioning? In fact, even before I ask you that, I'd ask you, what does essentially the strength and conditioning mean to you?
It's multifaceted.
Yeah.
You know, it's not it's not a one sentence response.
Yeah, I don't.
You know, it's both from the needs of the actual athlete, the individual, and also the sport itself.
Right.
So, you know, there's individual needs and also performance-specific needs. And then you've got the injury prevention element as well.
Right.
So if you dig deep into the needs analysis of the sport, you'll look at everything from the movement side of things to the physiology to specific joint actions, muscle actions and stuff. So then you identify what the actual sport needs, and then you have a look at also what the individual needs. So via objective testing, have a look at the performance side of things and determine then what some of the key performance indicators are going to be for that individual in conjunction with the sport itself. And then everything else you do to obviously complement that is addressing some of the common injuries within the sport, and then also some of the injuries that the athlete is obviously...
The individual needs should come first. That should be the first thing. And then
they're both
sport specific, or both of them will come.
Yeah, so it all comes under the same umbrella, the needs analysis of the sport and also the individual itself.
So you mentioned injury prevention is one thing that I know, because I have a friend, a colleague who I coach with, and it's his business, and I'm one of the coaches there, called Sharp Training. He's been on the podcast before.
Nice.
And what we do is very much strength and conditioning with a touch of mindfulness, and we got youth athletes that we coach, that we train, basketballers. My football team that I coach, he comes and does essential strength and conditioning for my football team that I coached under 14s. We also go into prime schools and we coach young kids, and the physical side comes down a little bit and the mindfulness steps up a little bit, but we still go through certain things, balance, coordination, body awareness, or something, because certain things that they would just never do in their PE lessons. And one thing we always thought about was injury prevention is a huge thing,
especially that kind of age group, because there's so much value you can give them from implementing some of the correct protocols. From prior to puberty through adolescence. If you can get them doing specific work before they then go through those hormonal changes. Things like adolescent awkwardness, and when growth is accelerated, that's when a player can be vulnerable. So if you're getting the specific working beforehand, which is with some of the youth pathways that we have, that's like a fundamental part of their long-term athletic development.
Right. So I talk to the boys that coach all the time, and I'm just like, because they're young, they're 13, like 12, 13, 14.
Yeah.
They're just like young boys sometimes, and you can't, and they're young anyway, so they can't understand the value of what's actually happening. But I just try and tell them that, like, the coaching, the strength and conditioning stuff that you get here from, my other coach that comes and does it, like, this is not what anyone at this level in this league is getting.
Yeah.
And as much as I try and like get that into them, like, really pay attention on what we're doing, because you're not going to get this again, and this is going to help you if you stick with it through.
But that goes back to what I said about the buy-in,
right?
Because you might be saying certain things to them or trying to explain your rationale for why we're doing it. But if it's going in one ear out the other, that's why it's so important that you actually get that buy-in. A lot of that comes down from obviously the educating side of things.
Of course. That's always interesting. So just sticking on injury prevention, I was curious to ask what are some of the revealed athletes that you might have, let's say more of the youth athletes. So what's the youngest age you would normally?
I've got a 12-year-old at the moment.
Okay, so say from about 12 to about 18. What are some of the biggest injuries that come up? Some of the most common ones.
It could be anything.
If they're the same from when, like, with adults with grown men.
Obviously, anything knee related. Anything from obviously any of the ligaments, ACLs, hamstring strains.
Really weird. I just itched my knee there as you said that.
I sensed it, didn't you? You could tell it was coming. Unfortunately, the knee does take a brunt for quite a few things in the game itself. Things like Osgood's as well. That's quite a common one with when obviously players are developing. And also the surface is quite an important part of that as well. Ankles as well. Yeah. I mean, they're all, with regards to like growth-related injuries, there are obviously similarities to obviously some of the other injuries they're going to get, just due to the nature and the sort of the chaos nature of the sport.
And I feel like there's so many variables, because even me, I I've developed over maybe the past few months a little bit of pain like in my Achilles, my right foot, and I feel like it's just think about where it's come from. I feel like it's come from the surface that I train on. When the surface I train on Tuesday night, that night or the next morning, I'm like almost like limping down the stairs.
Yeah.
Because my kid's just flaring.
It won't like the stairs.
Yeah. So
especially first thing in the morning.
Yeah. So I feel like, and that might be from the surface. So I feel like there's so many variables that you just got to think about, even without.
The thing is though, if it's if it's your tendon, then you know it could be classified as an overuse. That's typically what it is.
Yeah.
But I had a player who I've been working with on and off for a number of years. He came to me in the off season and he had patellar tendonitis, both knees, and also some Achilles tendonitis as well. And that was the playing surface.
Yeah.
So yeah, it is a contributor, and it's always something you take into consideration when applying load to a player. If it's obviously consistent, the surface they play on is obviously consistent throughout the season, then it's fine. But when things chop and change, these things obviously need to take into consideration and monitor.
Is it so with a lot of the clients that you have, a lot of the athletes? I imagine it all solely in football.
Yeah.
How much experience have you done with outside of football? How much experience have you done there with
other sports?
Yeah,
quite a bit. I mean, some of my online clients are from other sports, like distance runners.
Nice.
Got hockey players, done rugby players.
Nice.
So a bit of a mixed bag online, but in person it's all football now.
I imagine, depending on the two sports, how similar they can be. A lot of the people you deal with and the commonalities can be the same.
Yeah, I mean, most field sports and a lot of court sports, they have similarities. Going back to that needs analysis I spoke about, the movement and the physiology side of things is often quite similar. So the actual application of strength and conditioning is, what does a player need to do? Essentially, needs to be like quite strong, robust, powerful, fast. Yeah. So then and then also the endurance side of things. If it's more of a field specific sport, so then we're going back into those four main performance pillars: strength, speed, power, and endurance.
Yeah. I've always argued that my friend who runs the Sharp training business, he predominantly grew up playing basketball, basketball coach as well. Like basketball's his thing, where football's my thing. Yeah. And we've always had a funny conversation about football and basketball. And I want to ask you, what do you think requires, like, what would require more endurance, or like, who would be the fitter player on the basketball court or on a football pitch?
The needs are slightly different because the basketball is obviously there's much more accels, decels, and obviously shorter bouts of, say, high intensity effort. Not saying football differs massively because there's a lot of accels, decels, and also accelerations. I'd say the footballers probably cover a little bit more distance in a game, so that would be where I put my bets.
I won basically.
Purely based on distance.
I was like, hey, he said it. He's professional. So there's something I want to ask. So maybe in football coach, in football coaching, when you look at a player, there are sort of what you talk about it's called a 4-step corner model, model, and there's 4 sections where you look at a player that you make a makeup of a player.
From a technical standpoint, or just generally?
So just generally as a player. Yeah. So out of the 4 corners, there's the physical part of a player. Yep. There is technical part of a player. I believe that's one of them. Technical, social, and then psychological. Nice. Yeah. So there's always the 4 parts you look at that make up a player. Yeah. And essentially, that like a player needs to be at least well-rounded on all of them. You don't have to be excelling in one or other, but you don't want to be too bad in anything.
Social is how they sort of interact with others.
Interact with others, the team, etc.
Psychological, how they apply themselves.
Exactly, mentality, motivation. Technical, their skill-based more stuff, and the physical speed, strength, etc. I don't know if it's something you've ever thought about, but I'm curious, with all the players that you've come across, you coach from Premier League level, from 13, 14-year-olds into academies, what the ones that you would say are the most, have become the most successful, have there been any similarities, any of them, for corners? Is there? Yeah,
so our kind of approach towards the high performance side of things is 4-pronged as well, similar to like the performance pillars, but we look at the the training side of things, the nutrition side of things, and then the mindset, and put that into like the mentality side of things, and then also their ability to recover.
Yeah.
So those are the kind of like the four main things we look at. Yes, I know there's obviously the technical side of things as well.
That wouldn't really, that'd be a bit out of your scope.
It's separate, and it's because I'm not a football coach,
of course,
I just stay in my lane and do what I can do, control what I can,
scope of practice.
and also obviously assess what I can assess. But going back to kind of what you mentioned, those that have the technical ability matched with the psychological side of things.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It's no brainer because you've got I've experienced it. Many players having the technical ability, and then that undulating psychological side of things, or the mentality which is, say, in disarray. And the contributing factors to that are super complicated.
Yeah,
you don't know what's going on at home.
Of course.
You don't know what's happened to their in their past.
Of course.
You don't know what's happened that's causing this to manifest. But that's why I'm a big believer in players do need that psychology side of things, whether it's support. In theory, it can come from a parent, but it's a different type of psychology, isn't it? It shouldn't be as deep rooted as what a psychologist would do for a player. And I think outsourcing it to someone who is essentially doesn't know them, doesn't have that kind of relationship, is certainly healthy.
Yeah, I feel like it's got to be, especially when you're dealing with younger athletes, with your more youth athletes. I feel like it's got to be the whole circle that they're in. So it can't just be the parent. It's got to be the parent alongside coaches, alongside their teammates, their friends.
We're big on the inner circle.
Kind
of thing. Yeah.
Good. So I was because when I think about it, I try to imagine, because I do believe you have to be. If I talk about the 4 steps that I talked about, I do imagine you have to be fairly well versed in all of them.
Yeah, definitely.
And I always look at my players and I always think about some of the players that, to be fair, the technical and psychological quite do, because when I think about some of the players in my team who maybe are high on that technical scale, they do have that little bit of a oomph with the psychological scale, like that, their own self-motivation, their own discipline to do stuff. And ones that are a little bit lower also come down a little bit in the social and psychological, even though it might not be as. Do
you ever see those that are obviously gifted technically? Do you ever see any complacency creeping in?
Yes.
Yeah, it's quite common.
Yes.
It's common actually throughout. I wouldn't just say just the young.
Yeah.
But
so if I look at it, it's probably a sense of when you are high in technical ability and you're one of the best technically wise in the team, that is very much a thing that everybody is aware of. And they themselves are aware of it in that moment. That then gives them confidence. And
which I think
brings up
and
brings up the psychological, where they have that confidence in certain situations, and but then there can be a point where maybe that can get too high, and I think that's when that complacency can creep in.
I don't
where
know
that gets too high. Exactly.
Yeah.
Feeling like then using it as a way to feel like you are above everyone else. And that definitely does creep in, and I've seen that in teams I've played in growing up all too well.
I've seen it at the top of the game. When I was at Palace, one of the first team players was like, why do I need to do that? I'm the fastest on the team. Why do I need to do that lift? Why do I need to do those jumps? I'm the fastest.
Interested.
Yeah. That doesn't just happen with the youngsters.
And it's interesting that we think like that. Like, you have to have someone who's more well versed than me in psychology to really answer that, why we can get to that stage. But that's why the balance needs to be key in all of them. You have too high in one or the other. It could become to your detriment.
Yeah, I think even in all walks of life, whether you're a footballer or banker or an entrepreneur, I think being able to like reflect on kind of what you've done, so that essentially you don't then fall into that predisposition, I think is very important.
I always try to tell my players, like, one of my favorite quotes is just balancing everything. So understanding that, like, you might be the fastest, you might be the strongest, you might have the best finishing, but like there is something else you're lacking.
No, but you can always be better.
Right. Of course.
And that should always be the mentality, shouldn't it? Really.
Yeah. And I like 100% agree. I wanted to ask, for someone who is interested in strength and conditioning, who is trying to get into it from a place of maybe coaching or from a place of strength and conditioning piquing their interest and them trying to do training themselves because they play a certain sport, but but maybe they might not have the access to go to an SSC coach or to have their own sort of coach and do their own one-to-one sessions. How does like one go about that? Where do they start? Where can they get the information? Is there some? Is like where would you lead someone to?
So that's actually a very good question. I thought you were about to start talking about an actual coach, but yeah, you went on to the player side of things because the internet is a mess best of times.
Because that's the easy answer for anything. I'll just go to it and go Google it, but like it's not
so much
really
misinformation, and the internet is confusing, man. It's like you've got so many different opinions. Like this is the same with social media as well. I think social media is like a great platform, but you've got so many different opinions. And once again, like so many egos who, may think their way is the highway kind of thing. So what I would say is do your research. Don't put all your eggs in one basket until you've done your research, spoken to people, perhaps, and then also just, read up on it, experiment with things. It's never going to be perfect straight away. And there's also a lot of like good free information, free programming, and I'm not saying I've got a free child of mine or anything.
So I 100% I'm in a place where over the past year or so, just under a year, I've been trying to experiment more. So I've been PTing for just over a year and a half, and I've been trying to, over the past 6 to 8 months, trying to experiment more in specific strength and conditioning, because the coach that I coach with, he's been doing it for a while, so he's a bit more well versed in it. And me coming into it, coaching the young kids, now it's a very like basic level. The younger the age goes, we don't get that much into strength and conditioning. It's more game based and just getting them working on balance and things. But then also in sense of when we get to the older kids of like year 5 and 6 or 8, 9, 10, when we get to secondary school kids, when I have youth clients on my own that I have in my PE team, or to maybe play some sport outside, I always think about how can I understand this and improve my knowledge of this, and then I think about what I need to experiment and do this myself. As myself, I play football. I'm always looking to develop and progress. That's what I've been doing the past.
I've experimented my whole way. Literally my whole career. Right from when I first started as a trainer to when I started to move into strength and conditioning, when I was studying for my masters. All of these principles and theories that we learn in the classroom or online or whatever apply to ourselves first. I always say we are our own lab rats. We try it on us first before on a player. Right. I'm not saying we make up methodologies, but you've got to know what it feels like, and it's the same. I always think in order to coach a sport properly, I feel like you need to dip your toes in the water first to actually experience it, because then you know what it's like at a sort of deeper level.
You said you did a masters. What did you do your masters on?
In strength and conditioning.
How did that go? What was your how do I ask it? What was the main study you did? Who did you do it with?
I did it with a group of players at Luton.
Okay. Nice.
Yeah, so that was my first kind of like unpaid role.
Really?
First of many.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, it doesn't pay well down there.
Fair enough.
Initially.
Fair enough. How did that go? What did you work on?
Yeah, it was good. So I found actually a gap in literature.
Nice.
We tested the effects of certain jumps on jump performance and sprint ability.
Okay.
Without going too deep on the science, it was using just a number of different jumps, varying contact times on jumps and stuff like that, and varying muscular actions, and how that impacted overall jump performance and sprint ability.
And what did you find?
There was no significant difference between the two.
That's always the best, right? It's just there's no significant difference.
Killer.
You're like, great.
Yeah.
This is exactly what I wanted.
I know. I thought I was onto something as well.
I remember being in that position, and I had started masters, didn't finish it, but I remember just doing my undergrad dissertation, and so many people who didn't really know what they were doing, so they just went to the cliche stuff like testing jump in basketball athletes or something. But then there's some people doing certain studies and like finding that it wasn't really a big.
So you did undergrad in sports science or something?
No. I did it in. So I leant more towards the sociology side of it.
Okay.
That's where it gets me.
Yeah.
I remember being in my first year, I was in my sort of exercise science module, and just being in it. And then, you know, the lecturer was a really cool guy. I know him to this day. I work with him. And he was just talking about like the body functions and the heart. And I was just like, I was like, this is not me. This is not me. So I definitely was one who led more towards like sociology, psychology side of it.
Nice.
So yeah, my dissertation was more in that. And then my master's was in sociology as well.
Oh, nice. Very interesting.
Sociology in sports, or sports sociology. So I lean more towards that way. But now I wish I had spent so much time doing that stuff, because it really would benefit me now in everything I'm doing here.
Still time.
Yeah, of course. That's what I'm saying. So I'm still.
That's why you're still experimenting.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah, that's why if anyone says questions anything I'm doing, I'm just like, I'm just experimenting. Yeah. So, you know, it's not the best.
That's cool.
Right. So we do something at the end. Okay. At the end of the podcast, we do a quick fire question round. Okay. So I am going to fire off questions at you. Okay. Quick fire questions.
Fire away.
They're right. Anything. Okay.
Yeah.
Answer as quickly as you can.
Okay.
If you don't know it, just say pass. If you don't want to waste time. Okay.
This is like brain fart territory.
A little bit. Yeah. Some of them might be fairly easy. Some of them might be what the hell. But it's all right. Okay, so 6 seconds, get as many as you can. There is a leaderboard, okay? And how many did Simi? I forgot how many Simi got now. But he did really well.
Okay.
The leaderboard. So if you can knock him
I'm terrible at these kind of things.
All right, so are you ready? Right, I haven't read these questions in ages. Let me make sure I don't get it wrong myself. Waste your time. Right. You ready?
Yeah.
Okay, got the timer ready? Or should I get one here? I think Simi's definitely at the top. I don't remember how many points, but he's definitely at the top. Okay. We'll tell you at the end if you want. All right. So, also, count how many times I say correct. Yeah, count how many times I say correct. See how many gets right. All right. So, you don't want to go? Or should I just start?
I'll tell you when to go.
All right.
Ready?
Yeah.
3,
Serious.
2, 1, go.
What is the capital city of England?
London.
Correct. How many centimeters in a meter?
1,000.
100. Who is the current prime minister?
Richie Sunak.
Correct. Who is the current president of USA?
Move on, mind blank.
How many boroughs in London?
15?
32. What river goes through London?
Thames.
Correct. What continent is Australia in?
Australasia.
I'll give you that one.
No, it is, isn't it?
What year was the moon landed?
Nah, pass.
1969.
I was going to say...
What is the maximum speed an object can reach while falling through the air, commonly known as?
No idea.
Terminal velocity. How many colours in a rainbow?
8.
7. What is the capital city? Oh, there's a couple of difficult ones there. I was reading them again, thinking I forgot these answers, and I read them all the time. There's a couple of difficult ones there. You did a terminal velocity one.
Yeah, I want to throw people off.
You threw him off.
I was like, I don't even think I even comprehended the question.
Yeah,
so I was
yeah.
like, let's move on.
Fair enough. I remember Simi killed it, so I don't think you got top first place.
Simi got 11 points.
11.
Yeah.
Did you count how many you got?
Yeah, you got 4.
It's all right. Hey, you're on the leaderboard though.
Got something.
You're on the leaderboard.
Got something.
Sam, tell people listening where they can find you, where they can find your stuff, how they can get in contact with you. Anything new and exciting that's coming up that's happening.
So, yeah, my Instagram handles are Sam Pepys Performance, and my online coaching and mentoring handle is Adapt, Evolve, Improve. What's happening at the moment? Nothing much, man, apart from, we're just going to be launching the new mentorship in July.
And the mentorship is for
PTs and coaches.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Okay, and they can just get on that through through Instagram. They can find
through
that.
Instagram. Yeah, can access me via Instagram, via email.
Yeah.
So that's about it. That's about the latest for me.
Listen, I thank you for being here. Thank you for coming through. Very interesting to talk about that stuff. I 100% know there's going to be other people that are going to take some stuff from this as well. And they know how to find you if they want to get in touch, want to get in contact, get on your mentorship, whatever it may be.
Hit me up.
people, thank you for listening. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for joining. We will be back. Apologies for the wait, but we'll be back again with 2 more episodes right after this one. So thank you for tuning in. We'll leave it there. Please make sure to like, comment, subscribe. That helps us out a lot. We appreciate the support. We can get more people in doing interesting things like this. And we'll leave it there. Is there anything else? No? Stay safe, stay sweet, stay street.